The National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. has reopened after a breathtaking top-to-bottom renovation. And we're celebrating the voices and achievements of women artists from around the world. Visit now to see Suchitra Matai, Myth from Matter, a new exhibition of richly layered and vibrant paintings, sculptures, and installations that use saris, vintage needlepoints, jewelry, and bindis to imagine a past that lifts up women and people of color. Tickets at nmwa.org. That's nmwa.org. Today on CityCast DC, if you've been listening to the show, then you know there's been a ton happening in the news. So much so that we can't always get to everything. So here are the biggest stories that you might have missed this September. Today's Tuesday, September 24th. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. So, Priyanka, Julia, as y'all know, this is a new thing that we're trying out here where, because there's so much happening, we're digging into stories that folks might have missed this month. And we're doing it with a little bit of pressure because we are trying to zoom through 10 stories at 2 minutes each, and we've got a timer.
We have a timer. Yes. Yeah.
So literally on the clock. Great.
Yeah, I thought this was really fun when we tried it in August. I'm excited to see how we do this time.
Let's do it.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so first up, we have Trayon White updates. Trayon White is the council member for Ward 8. You may remember that at the end of August, he was arrested on a really shocking Sunday afternoon by the FBI, arrested for alleged bribery charges. So the updates for September are, one, he had his court hearing where he pled not guilty to the allegations. Then there was a very spicy council meeting. It was the first council meeting back from their summer session, happened last week. And obviously the council was like, well, we have to figure out what to do about this because now one of our guys has been indicted on federal bribery charges. So what they did was they set up what they're calling an ad hoc committee to decide whether or not they're going to kick Trayon White out of the council.
Sheesh.
Yeah, very, very spicy stuff. To determine that, they have hired a law firm. Can you guess how much this law firm is going to cost taxpayers?
Oh, it's going to be cheap, right? It's going to be a bargain.
I hope so.
Lawyers always are cheap. $400,000 investigation, but they are going to be looking into both the bribery charge and then also whether or not Trayon White actually lives in Ward 8, because that's a requirement of his job. But he was arrested in Ward 6 and prosecutors say he lives there. So that's another spicy element of this whole thing. The other thing that they did at this council meeting last week was shut down the committee that council member White is the chairman of, and they split up the responsibilities of that committee into 2 other committees that will be chaired by other council members. Trayon White did not attend this meeting in person. He attended virtually, which has been something he does a lot, and that has also been a source of controversy for him. And they will vote on whether or not to expel him early next year.
So is he still on the ballot? Like, could he still get voted in to be the Ward 8 council member?
He can. And that was my time. So next up.
Okay, so on the show, we've talked a lot about youth curfews. There's been a couple of them that have happened in Maryland, in DC, and Virginia. And right now, there is this really big expansion in Anne Arundel County. So this is like almost near Annapolis, but close enough that we still kind of cover it. This curfew is at Arundel Mills. Does that name ring any bells for people?
It sure does.
Yeah, you bet it does, because it's the largest mall in Anne Arundel County, baby. Fun fact, there's also curfews right now at Six Flags, the Columbia Mall, and the National Harbor. From one of the stories that I was reading from WHILA, it says all visitors under 18 must be accompanied by a parent or adult age 21 or older after 3 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. One adult can chaperone up to 4 kids or teens, and those without ID will be asked to leave. Apparently, there's been like dozens of incidents at this mall, and they've mostly been assaults and not robberies, which is kind of wild. Yeah, like, I guess fights maybe. But basically, because schools are back in sessions, shopping malls are like good third places for teens. Like, you all probably went to malls on the weekend. I went to malls on the weekend. The food court was lit. It was great. But basically, now mall employees under 18 are also subject to this policy, which means if their shift ends during the curfew, they also have to leave if they are without an adult. And guys, I can't.
Wait, they have to leave? So, like, if you're clocked in for your shift at the pretzel place,
yes,
you have to, like, go home?
Yes. Could you Unless there's an adult supervising you. Could you imagine you're just like working at Aeropostale and it's the 2010s and you have to be asked to leave? Could you imagine?
That's crazy. But okay, also, I mean, it's your job, so there will be adults supervising.
Well, I don't know, though, because I worked a lot of crappy retail jobs at the mall, and a lot of it was just run by teenagers. Like, it was teenagers supervising other teenagers with no adults there. Maybe an adult would come by and check the register, but yes.
Good to know. Good to know.
Round 3.
Okay, so let's get into the weed crackdown happening across the district. So generally, y'all know that DC's been pretty hands-off when it comes to those unlicensed weed stores that are I-71 compliant with the gifting, where you go in and you are paying $50 to buy a fridge magnet and it just happens to come with weed. Well, that is changing because in September, a handful of these shops were served closure orders. The Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Administration Enforcement Division, or the ABCA, accompanied by the Metropolitan Police Department, served closure notices to the owners of 2 illegal cannabis businesses, All American Papers on 8th Street and Stoners with a Z, also on 8th Street.
I love that it's Stoners with a Z. I can't.
Yeah. How could it not be, right?
Right.
So this comes after, earlier in September, they sent closure orders to the owner of Green Cloud Shop, an unlicensed cannabis business on Kennedy Street in Northwest, and Supreme Terpene, an illegal cannabis business on U Street. According to ABCA, due to both businesses posing a credible and imminent danger to public health and safety, ABCA shuttered the businesses, including padlocking the doors. Now, here's something I found interesting in the list of things that they seized. It's THC-laced edibles and mushrooms and wax and things like that. They also say that they seized marijuana laced with amphetamine.
Whoa!
I am no doctor, but that sounds kind of
unsafe.
I don't know. I don't like the sound of that. Yeah.
Hard pass.
Yeah. When I read that news, it really stressed me out because, I know people who go to gifting shops. I have been to a gifting shop before, and it is anxiety inducing to know that you might be buying product that is actually unsafe for you.
So to mitigate that, the city wants these illegal shops to become legal medical dispensaries. A lot of these places have applied to do that, but not a lot of them have been approved. So this off-ramp to becoming legal is not looking very promising. And DC only has one guy in charge of all of this. There's one weed inspector. So if you're listening to this thinking my favorite store might close, it might not happen that quickly because there's only one guy in charge of it.
Round 4.
Wow, I feel like we're really speeding through this time. Okay, so I am talking about a few wins from WMATA. I mean, obviously, these are self-declared wins, so keep that in mind. But every single WMATA metro station in DC, or in the DMV generally, I should say, that's all 98 stations, now have the saloon-style fare gates, which are supposed to stop fare evasion. WMATA does say that they have led to an 82% drop in fare evasion. And I mean, this is very anecdotal, of course, but I do feel like I've seen fewer people jumping the turnstiles because it's just harder to do it. I mean,
yeah, you can't high jump over them.
Yeah, it isn't a turnstile. They will still continue to have Metro Transit Police patrolling the stations. They've written more than 10,000 fare evasion citations so far this year, which is when they kind of started to ramp up their policing of this issue. That's 3 times the number of tickets that they wrote up during the same period last year. And 2,000 more citations than all of 2019. So obviously they're taking this seriously. And they also say that the people that they're arresting for fare evasion or stopping for fare evasion, they have found a significant number of people, 250 of them had open warrants, and they recovered 16 guns. So they're kind of talking about this as in our attempt to stop fare evasion, we're also catching other things. Feel about that how you will.
Why would you jump the turnstile at the Metro while you also had an illegal gun on you?
Because you can. I don't know.
That seems like a recipe for getting caught with an illegal gun.
It's true. People
obviously
don't always make the best decisions. I also think people got away with fare evasion for so long in DC that they probably thought they could continue to. But yeah, pretty wild. And then the other thing is that bus lane infractions are declining because that is finally deterring people from driving in the bus lane.
Nice. All right. So we're moving on to ADMO, which is where a bunch of buses go absolutely ham because it's a little bit of a traffic jam. There's been conversations that we've had on the show and also generally about streetery expansion or demolition because we are now 4 years technically after the pandemic. Kind of wild to say. But some people love streeteries because it means al fresco dining. You're eating outdoors. It's lovely. And some people hate them because jury barriers are really ugly to look at. Also, it makes traffic routes insane. Buses have to get rerouted. It's a whole thing. And the lanes aren't big enough. So there was an argument in Adams Morgan, about streeteries recently regarding Madams Organ. We're going to get to that in a bit. But the Business Improvement District has stated they're moving forward with the Department of Transportation's plan for a streetery pilot program. So in terms of this timing, and will it affect your commute? Here's what's going to happen. Demolition of existing streeteries is happening right now, and installation of the new structures will begin on September 16th. Completion of the new streeteries will occur on or before September 27th, so that's this week. So you could be getting your nice, fancy alfresco dining ASAP. And also, you can check out the renderings thanks to the Adams Morgan bid, and they look like pretty good. Like, they actually look like I would want to sit out there instead of having a Jersey barrier protecting me from, getting hit. Recently, there was something that came out from Madams Organ owner Bill Duggan. He said basically that he didn't like the fact that streeters existed. He claimed that the neighborhood partnership with Department of Transportation were using strong arm tactics to force businesses to sign on for one of the new streeteries in a letter published by Popville. So check that out.
I feel like you're underselling that letter. I think people should read it for themselves, because I believe that he did not come off as sounding like a measured, tempered business owner.
No.
And so folks should read it to get a sense of what he said.
Yeah. The one point he made that I did think was interesting was the fact that he thinks that the new streeteries could create space for rats to chill,
Yes.
which I hadn't considered, and I'd never heard that argument before, and I'm curious about its validity.
Yeah, I actually wonder with the platforms and what they've got going on if it will actually be a harborage for rats. But I don't know. Maybe our boy from Rat Control will take care of it. We'll see.
So if you've been on the Washington, D.C. subreddit, you've already seen this story. You're all over it. Here's what happened. Basically, an Uber Eats driver goes into a DuPont Circle, Canna Coffee Cafe. The whole title is very long. Let's just call it Canna Coffee. He films himself having a pretty racist interaction with the owner, who berates him for not speaking English. The video goes viral. It was all over TikTok, millions of views. So Uber immediately kicked Canna Coffee off of its app, saying, quote, "We are absolutely disgusted by this behavior. Uber is proud to help people from many backgrounds find work in their communities, and hate has no place on our platform." Police were actually investigating this video as a possible hate crime and a possible simple assault. The story does not end there, because after this restaurant was kind of thrust into the national spotlight, it drew attention to these pre-existing issues, mainly that this restaurant had been popped by the health department earlier. So DC's Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection and DC Health issued a statement that the restaurant had received a notice of infraction on May 13th and again on August 8th. Now, check out those dates, because those infractions are unrelated to that viral racist incident. They predate that incident. And the DC Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Administration revealed that Canna Coffee was formerly known as Mary J's Exotic and was accused of illegally manufacturing, growing, and selling marijuana. A warning letter had been issued in May to the business, outlining potential consequences if it continued this illegal activity. This is a story where, again, much like the people who are hopping the turnstile and happen to have a gun on you, if you know you've been under the spotlight from the city for doing illegal stuff, maybe don't also be involved in a viral racist incident. As they say on TikTok, he really should have just sat there and cooked his food rather than getting mixed up with this. When reached for comment by Fox 5, the owner of Canna Coffee responded with a cryptic message saying, quote, "Humans are crazy." Paint Care is all about keeping it simple for district residents. They make recycling leftover paint, stain, and varnish easy with convenient drop-off locations like your local paint or hardware store. Each new paint project is an opportunity to reduce waste, and Paint Care has 3 simple rules for painting smarter. 1, buy the right amount of paint for the job. 2, use up leftover paint. And 3, recycle the rest. Visit paintcare.org/3simplerules to get tips on how to buy the right amount of paint, explore ideas for DIY projects for how to use up leftover paint, and look up your nearest drop-off site in the district. The National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. has reopened after a breathtaking top-to-bottom renovation. And we're celebrating the voices and achievements of women artists from around the world. Visit now to see Suchitra Matai, Myth from Matter, a new exhibition of richly layered and vibrant paintings, sculptures, and installations that use saris, vintage needlepoints, jewelry, and bindis to imagine a past that lifts up women and people of color. Tickets at nmwa.org. That's nmwa.org. I've got some exciting news for you theater lovers across DC. The Peabody Institute of the Johns Hopkins University is going big to celebrate 1 year of performances at the Bloomberg Center, DC's newest venue for music and dance. They're putting on a bunch of free shows this fall. I'm talking orchestra, jazz, and opera performances, all presented by talented Peabody faculty, students, and alumni. So for example, at the end of September, I'm really excited about the Polyaspora Festival, which centers Black and Brazilian perspectives in contemporary music. Or in October, there's the Democracy Day show. It's all happening at 555 Pennsylvania Avenue. And again, believe it or not, this is all free. But tickets are required, so explore the full concert calendar and reserve your spots now at washingtondc.jhu.edu.
Another story about an interesting location in DC. There's a new bar on U Street called Political Patties. It's at 913 U Street. 3-story bar. It's replacing Dirty Goose, if you knew what that was.
Rest in peace, Dirty Goose.
But this place has become a flashpoint for lots of criticism because it's called Political Patties. And it's supposed to be like a political bar. Like they're basically going for a sports bar model, but politics, which like I've kind of wanted, I guess. Like I have wished that that existed in DC, but they're just leaning so hard into the bipartisanship angle that a lot of people think that it sounds ridiculous. There's also like some other weird kitschy stuff about it. They're going to have gavels on every table, which it sounds like a dangerous thing at a bar. That's going to get real loud real fast. Their tagline is "Put the lit in politics."
I actually love that.
Do you?
Kind of. Kind of. I get it. They're trying to drum up interest, and we're talking about it. So there is that.
Yeah, I mean, the other interesting thing is that the owners, Andrew Benbow and Sydney Bradford, are both native Washingtonians, and they're lawyers from both sides of the aisle. So they're a couple, like they're together romantically. She is a registered Democrat. He calls himself an incredibly moderate Republican. And then they're opening up this bipartisan politics bar together. They say that like the backlash was surprising to them and kind of goes at why they want to open this place up. They say the tone and tenor of politics has gotten super divisive, and they want to reinvigorate the nightlife scene and political conversation with the same energy that we harken back to the Obama years, they say.
Have they considered that Union Pub is this but better?
I don't know. I mean, I guess the question is it better? We don't really know. It only opened on Friday. So time will tell.
So everybody is talking about dating in DC because this new season of Netflix's reality show Love is Blind will be taking place right here in the district. There's also a new dating app soft launching in DC that has a very DC twist. It is for people who follow the news. This app is called InPress. So it's soft launched here in DC, only for folks living here. If you want to try it out, it is free to use, but when it launches in October, it will cost you $20 for a subscription. Basically, it kind of sounds very similar to that bar, right? The founder, Adam Harder, was previously an Air Force broadcast journalist. He told Axios's Mimi Montgomery, friend of the show, that the goal of this app isn't just to match singles, it's to also get people to read more, quote, accountable, factual news. Basically, it kind of works like a newsfeed where if you read a story, you then select how interesting or impactful you found it, and then it pairs you up via that ranking. So maybe if you get paired with a single on this app, you can take them to Political Patties.
Oh my God. Okay, so I had like 50 texts from friends being like, are you on this app? And they basically peer pressured me into getting on this app and like poking around it and seeing it. Like the user interface is fine, but like what I don't like is you can't just like search for an article you want. Like it breaks it out into sections and you have to like rank and like stuff. And the truth is like, yeah, like I like reading the news, but it's also sort of my job. I don't know that I want my dating life to be just revolving around reading the news, you know?
Does it expose you to articles you wouldn't have seen otherwise?
Occasionally, like there's tech articles that I think I wouldn't otherwise read, but that's also why I have Twitter or X. Like typically there's like some really long form, cool, interesting piece on The Atlantic I typically wouldn't have gotten. And like, that's how I get my stuff, you know?
I just don't know how I feel about this. And I think I'm not the only person who's a little bit skeptical because overall people are burnt out on dating apps. I don't know that a new twist is going to be the thing that has dating apps capturing our imaginations again, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right. So we talked about how WMATA had some wins earlier in the show. You also might know that WMATA's wins include their general social media presence on TikTok and Instagram. They've been making these really fabulous videos and TikToks. I'm a big fan. And
They
I
are
thought
killing it, yes.
They're really good. The person who is in charge of this is Whitney Nichols. She's 33 years old. Guys, there's hope for us. There's hope for me of being hip and with it. But basically, she's been trying to make them cool on social media again. She thinks that TikTok is a good way to access the youths. She had this really funny one where the metro escalator installations had been ahead of schedule. And so they did the Hot to Go dance by Chappell Roan on the escalators going up and down in like pairs. And it was very cute. And since June, the accounts, both the TikTok and Insta, have gained 15,000 followers combined.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a lot for a summer.
Yeah. To be clear, like, I thought that Metro hired some rando Gen Z kid because that was my assumption. Apparently not. Guys, is Metro cool now? What is happening?
I do think that since Randy Clark started, Metro has been trending cooler. Like, I feel like their whole brand just, like, shifted with him.
Sure.
I think they're trying. I've seen these waves before where they have new T-shirts, this or that. People always go back to griping on Metro.
That's
Mark
fair.
my words.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. It'll never last.
Nothing unifies the city like trashing your public transit. Am I right?
Absolutely right.
There was also a really funny one that was making rounds about, like, the looking for a man in finance.
Oh my God.
Meme. Do you remember
That's
that?
right.
Yes.
And they
Blue
were like-
eyes.
Yeah.
6'5".
Yeah. And they were like, look for him on Metro. And it
Oh
was
my
just like
God.
a bunch of thirst traps of tall, blue-eyed men sitting on their Metro commutes. Very
I
cute.
wish that were the dating app versus InPress. Is that weird?
Listen,
You
if
know.
you're looking to find a tall guy who's going to yap at you about his boring job for a congressperson or a senator, Metro.
Metro. All right. Bridget, next up.
So have you ever crossed the street, had a car not give you the right of way when they should have, and thought, what can I do about this? Well, if you've been in that situation, if you had been holding a brick, do you think things might have been different?
Oh, straight through the window. I'm sorry, at your car. Follow the rules.
So in Arlington, a mystery person set up a pedestrian crossing area where pedestrians are encouraged to take a brick before crossing the street. The sign reads, be seen, grab a brick, look, wave, cross. Now, I should say the bricks are not real. They are like foam toy bricks, but it is certainly one way to encourage people in cars to slow down for pedestrians. I know this may sound funny, but the reasoning behind this is really no joke. Fox 5 spoke to the guy who put up the fake bricks in Arlington. You know, he's not revealing his identity, but he did do this interview. He said that he did it because of long-standing concerns about safety on South Carlin Springs Road in Arlington. He wanted to remain anonymous, but he said the sidewalks are too close to the road and more needs to be done to make the road safer since there are lots of kids and families walking nearby. He says, as a parent, we're all terrified to walk on this road with our kids, and there are 3 schools right there, 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school. There's been a decade of advocacy trying to get some level of safety brought to this road, and the county's been slow to act. So maybe these bricks will be the answer.
I love the initiative. I think it's like a cutesy threat, and I think it's fun. I think they should roll it out to more of Arlington, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I also wonder if they have like speed cameras that actually work out there, because legally you're supposed to have, I think it's 25 miles an hour in a school zone. That I know that's a rule in Maryland, and I assume in DC it's probably similar. And I bet Virginia has a similar rule too. So I wonder if it's just like install like a speed camera on every block that is really reactive.
Wow, that felt hard.
Yeah, that was hard. That was very difficult.
2 minutes is short.
It's really short.
But we got through a lot of stories. We got through a
We
lot of
did.
stories. One more thing that we should mention, a bonus 11th story for y'all, is that we have a live taping coming up. It is approximately 2 weeks from now, October 9th. It's a Wednesday. And we're going to be talking election stories. The election obviously is coming up soon. Mail-in ballots are open for drop-off starting October 11th. So come to our October 9th live taping, get the last-minute info you need, then fill out your ballot and drop it off. We are right on time for you.
We're at Black Hat, so come hang out with us, then go to Political Patties and argue about it.
And don't worry, we'll be taking our time with our conversation. We will not be rushing through it at 2 minutes or less.
Yes, exactly. It'll be Bridget, our other host, Mike Schaefer, and WAMU's Tom Sherwood. So it's going to be a really, really great panel, really great time.
Well, Julia, Priyanka, thank you for rushing through these stories with me today.
Yeah, thank you. Always a blast.
Thank you.
That is all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, tell a friend who wants to be a better DC, Maryland, or Virginia driver. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.